From exploring ancient ruins, to capturing a shiny dark-type Pokémon, and beating a chicken's ass along the way. This is Palworld. Palworld is a game that at first wasn't actually on my radar, but it kept appearing on my different social media feeds, and a bunch of creators I sometimes watch and frequent were playing this game themselves. So I decided to take a look into Palworld and see what it was all about, and I'm glad that I did. Palworld is like every other game genre packed into one. Survival, base building, leveling, and Pokemon, sometimes with guns. I could have stayed here forever and looked at all the different information about the game, but I decided that I wanted to see it for myself. I wanted to have my own bootleg Pokemon adventure, and so it was time. A game of epic proportions requires a man of truly epic proportions to match it. This guy may not exactly eat his veggies, but my god, did he not skip his arm and leg day. Also, thank god they found a sash that was big enough to cover his lower half, because god only knows what it looks like underneath there. Once Big Chungus himself is done, the game begins like an episode of Survivor. If Survivor was directed by a bunch of furries. This chicken, cat, and sheep seem to be terrified of my epic proportions, which I can't blame them for. And a phone on the beach starts flashing to read me a message, telling me to go to the towers and that they hold the truth. But this epic man has better places to be. I mean, look at him. Who walks like that? At this point, the towers should be more afraid of me than anything else. The first time I spawn in, I find myself in a bunch of ruins of some old monument. And the tutorial at the top right teaches me a bunch of the beginner basics to understand the game. Firstly, telling me to go ahead and build a primitive workbench that, once I go ahead and put in the ground and start building, magically appears as I hammer it away like it's in the Tron movie. My 3 castaway friends from earlier are put into my not Pokedex, which is located in my inventory and technology tabs. But since I haven't exactly caught any of them, I don't have any data for any of these dudes. So, here's my first objective. Heading down into the fields, I figure I should get a move on and capture my first pal, but I take the game's tutorial in the top right a little too literally, and weaken this chicken by punching its ass with my 40-ton arms. Somehow, getting hit by a man-sized truck doesn't kill it instantly. So I throw out my sphere, and after it does its own little calculations, I capture my first ever pal. Thankfully, this guy is still complete with his ass, despite my punching. Though I'm not quite sure how much of a pal he is, considering I keep him in a spherical prison. Guess I won't question that. Like any good video game, the ancient ruins have a hidden chest in the ruins themselves, and a journal of some castaway that I don't bother reading. And I'm too busy eating the meat from a fallen chicken to care anyway. Oh, and at some point, apparently I met a woolly mammoth. I don't know when that happened. These ruins keep going downwards, and I actually meet the big green man himself down below, being a whole level 33 dude that is well beyond my level 2 ass. There's another secret chest located further along in the ruins, and once I get it in the distance, that's when I realized that this game also ripped off Minecraft. I've been playing for only 15 minutes at this point, and this is already the second thing in this game that I've tried to beat up. I'm starting to notice a recurring theme here. This complete stranger hanging out by a campfire is packing an entire shotgun with them, and casually greets me like she didn't just watch me hit a chicken only 5 minutes earlier. She even gives me some supplies, so I guess that's just the kind of thing she's into. The giant eagle statue at the base of the ruins acts like a fast travel point, and the sheep near it, though, don't exactly share in the fastness of the monument. So I go ahead and whip out another pal sphere, but instead of beating this one's ass, I just throw the sphere at its ass. And this seems to be a more peaceful option as I get my second ever pal to join my adventure. I've really proven myself by being able to capture an animal described as lowest on the food chain. And a chicken. You know what? I guess every Pokemon adventure has to start somewhere. At that workbench from earlier, I craft together a pickaxe. And once it's done, I start hammering away at a glowing rock nearby with my 40-ton arms to collect some of those palladium fragments to craft some more of those pal spheres I'm going to need for later to capture more of them. Then I really embrace my inner gamer and start beating away at a nearby rock formation to collect some ore, which I don't know what to do with. But beating objects in this game is just a regular occurrence at this point. With enough resources, I build a pallet box to claim the area, but instead the pits of hell start taking over my screen, as if to punish me for all the beating I keep doing. Or not. just a regular old PAL box, I guess. Nothing to see here. Honestly, that red screen of death actually lit up the area well, so I'm forced to craft the torch so I can actually navigate the area and see more for myself. Since it's the first night, special pals begin to spawn. They only come out in the darkness. And that's when I take a little dip in the water and spot it in the distance. My first ever shiny pal. Like actual Pokemon, Palworld has shiny variants of the regular pals that are both literally larger, being almost triple the size, and stronger than their usual counterparts. And I don't think I could have gotten any luckier than this. Once I take out my pal sphere, I notice that I only actually have a 7% chance of actually capturing this guy to begin with. And at first, I send out my sheep a few times. But that doesn't really do anything because we're not playing Pokemon. Oh yeah, and there's a sleeping dragon just hanging out. To try to give me a bit more of an advantage, I go ahead and send out my sheep pal to get it a little bit stronger for a potential battle with the shiny to get it. But the bro just kind of rolls into a tree and knocks himself unconscious. And after I do all of the work, he gains a single level before I realize that the strategy is kind of dumb. And I can't exactly capture any of the nearby Pokemon. So you know what's even dumber than that? Fighting a shiny level 9 Dark Owl with a level 2 sheep. Although, you know, I have to commend his confidence. Honestly, I couldn't have expected that 7% chance to work, and neither could I have expected my sheep pal to actually do anything. This game suddenly went from peaceful Pokemon ripoff to a Dark Souls boss battle in the span of a minute, as my sheep pal is quickly dying and I start dodge rolling and avoiding projectiles from this absolute oversized demon owl hanging out in the forest. I managed to close the distance and with my torch actually light it on fire, but that doesn't really do much. I take the plunge and throw a sphere with a 2% chance to catch it. You've got to be kidding me. Somehow, with a 2% chance, I capture my first ever shiny on the first night of playing in this world. Odds like that are exactly why I'm in law school and not a STEM major. Apparently Big Chungus over here stopped off at KFC at some point, and in my inventory is pretty cluttered. So I go ahead and return back to base and throw my sheep into the PAL box for some much needed healing. He may not have done much, but at least he did something. I also decide to go ahead and check out the new evil Angry Bird that I now get to claim as my own first shiny. I gotta say, he's not so shiny once you take him out of the ball, but he is big. Never talk to him or his son ever again. I figured that now is a good time to put down some beds for my pals, since we've claimed these ruins as our own, like squatters' rights. And if I'm going to protect it, I figure I should at least have some dudes who are gonna hang out here and help me with it. I mean, after all, I'm catching shinies and beating up pals. There's not much I can do to protect the base. Throwing down some wooden floors and wooden walls to the right of the barriers and borders of my base, make sure that I establish almost something of a little bit of a fort, protecting the area and making sure that no pals or enemies are able to just go ahead and walk on it. This absolute demon paralysis demon decides to hang out, and I throw my Angry Bird in this merchant's face to assert dominance. In fact, I'm not gonna lie, I start chasing this guy at first, but I kind of forget this isn't actual Pokemon, and that throwing an oversized Angry Bird doesn't do anything. I casually give this Dream Cloud a little love tap with a pickaxe, which pales in comparison to my shiny throwing an entire ice crystal in its face, including another wind projectile that smacks it dead on. Once it's fairly weak enough, I toss a PAL sphere, and snag my 4th PAL of the playthrough. And at some point in that fight, my chicken somehow got lost, and so I go ahead and have to guide my lost chicken pal back to its home down below. And speaking of a home down below, you can find one yourself by scrolling down and clicking that subscribe button, along with the notification bell. My usual upload schedule is on Fridays, but this game was so fun, meme-worthy, and full of weird adventures that I decided to put it out early just for you guys. There's a bunch more videos already put up on the channel that you can watch for a bunch of different games. And there's a bunch more coming, including like this from Palworld. So consider sticking around and showing your support by subscribing and liking the video. Don't disappoint Big Chungus here. You wouldn't really like him when he's disappointed, as we've seen. My fight with that sleep paralysis demon, it taught me that I need some real defenses in my base. So I go back to my fort walls on the right and see if I can break down the environment to make more room. But Big Chungus's brain isn't so big, and I realize that I'm hitting my own fort. So instead I build up my walls in shame, and Big Chungus lets out some more punching. But in a productive manner this time, and with a hammer. Even though I'm building a bed on the floor, and not hitting anything. Honestly, I can't think of anything more menacing to this cat right now than an oversized man approaching with a pickaxe and an angry bird appearing from thin air. So, while I would like to be upset, I can't really blame this cat from absolutely wailing away at this bird. I'm just amazed that he actually was able to do it. It becomes weak enough that I toss a PAL sphere to be able to capture it, and save it from a life of living in fear of Big Chungus or birds. I use my spare technology points to unlock a few more base buildables, and return home for some cooking. Now you see, these are the kinds of adventures that you don't get to see in all those Pokemon episodes. Or probably the adventures you want to see either, for being honest. Now that I'm actually basing these pals and putting them to work, I check out their stats, while they go ahead and peacefully snore away in their beds, and he casually floats on his. That's a move I did not know they knew how to do. The next morning, I figure it's time to put down a ranch, and learn the fact that sheep scarily have posable thumbs and the ability to work as carpenters. I absolutely did not have animal construction workers on my bingo card for this game, but I weirdly hear a shimmering sound from the ruins above, and decide to scale the walls like the Big Chungus I am to check it out. And that's when I see it, my second shiny. This time in oversized chicken. I figured this should be an oversized bird contest, but my Big Chungus brain forgot to actually bring a sphere to capture this shiny this time around. So I only have the option of running away with my Big Chungus legs, and I run down to the main base and decide to quickly gather resources to craft a sphere, while my enemy hangs out very nicely in the river below. I guess that he wanted to take in the sights, while my pals act like this is ground zero of a war. But given it's only a 10% chance of me capturing this guy, I embrace my inner pal training that I've gotten thus far, and start beating him with an axe while it flaps around in the river. This feels like the kind of bootleg episode of Pokemon that you'd only find on like one of those bootleg DVDs you could get back in like 2005. I mean, imagine if you were in Pokemon and just casually saw this going on. A shirtless man hitting a chicken with an axe. And so, with one sphere and a bootleg adventure, I go ahead and throw it. And capture my second shiny of the game, and my second chicken too. Which is a weird sentence I thought I'd never hear. And I also get to hear some uncharacteristically happy music, given what I've just done. And toss a chicken. For fun. I did not intend for that to rhyme. I completely forgot that amidst this battle of the birds, my sheep pal has been sweating away at this ranch. So I kneel down and show him how a man of epic proportions gets the job done. And voila. Just like that, the birds are tamed, the grassland is built, and my pals get grazing. All in the life of a bootleg Pokemon episode. I mean, pals episode.